SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries, Ooze in the Ocean. Chapter 5. I like travel as much as the next sponge, but that wasn't my idea of a fun trip. Sure, it was quick. One minute we were standing there surrounded by ghost pirates, and the next minute we weren't. We didn't even have to buy a bus ticket. But the place we ended up wasn't exactly a relaxing vacation spot, not by a long shot. Where are we? SpongeBob asked, bewildered. What happened to the ghost pirates? He looked around and saw that he and Patrick were standing on the deck of an old-fashioned sailing ship. The deck was littered with wooden barrels, and the railings and rigging were covered in cobwebs. Ancient frayed ropes led up to the ragged mainsail, which displayed a skull and crossbones. Above the sail, atop the main mast, was a janky crow's nest. Everything from the figurehead to the steering wheel glowed an otherworldly green. This is the Flying Dutchman ship, SpongeBob realized. Exactly, Patrick confirmed. Is that why you started yelling his name over and over? Yup, Patrick said proudly. I figured we wanted to get away from those ghost pirates. We also wanted to find the Flying Dutchman, and I remember that creepy captain telling us that if you say his name too many times, the Flying Dutchman would snatch you up. And make you join his ghostly crew forever! SpongeBob yelled, waving his arms wildly in a state of panic. Oh yeah, Patrick said. I forgot that part. Oops. He felt bad. He'd make a big mistake. Now SpongeBob would probably never believe that he could be a good detective. What are we gonna do? SpongeBob wailed. I don't want to be part of the Flying Dutchman's ghostly crew forever. I'm already part of the Krusty Krab's crew. Also, who's gonna feed Gary? Patrick looked around. Well, I don't see the Flying Dutchman. Maybe he's not here. He headed toward the ship's steering wheel. We'll just point this baby toward home, fly there real quick, and get off this crummy old ship before the Flying Dutchman even notices. Too late! Roared the Flying Dutchman, suddenly appearing out of thin air. I already noticed. And whose ship are you calling crummy? Shaking in their detective duds, SpongeBob and Patrick talked at the same time. Nobody's, Patrick stammered. Certainly not yours, the Flying Dutchman, sir! SpongeBob babbled simultaneously. Quiet! The Flying Dutchman boomed. Of course I know you two scallywags are on my ship. I'm the one who brought you here with my ghostly powers. Because I said your name a bunch of times? Patrick asked. R, the Flying Dutchman said. I hate that. Why? SpongeBob asked. Just seems like good publicity. The Flying Dutchman folded his arms across his chest. How am I supposed to sneak up on people and scare them if everybody's always talking about me? I don't want you blabbing my name all over town. I want the citizens of Bikini Bottom to forget I even exist. Then when they least expect it, I'll pop out and... boo! SpongeBob and Patrick jumped and gasped. Ah! Ah! Even though they'd been staring at the Flying Dutchman through this whole explanation of why he didn't want them to go around calling out his name. When he got his breath back, SpongeBob remembered why they'd been looking for the Flying Dutchman in the first place. He figured that just because he'd been brought on board to join his ghostly crew forever didn't mean he couldn't keep being a detective. Speaking of your ship, SpongeBob said slyly, even though the topic of conversation had clearly moved on, I see that it glows a beautiful shade of green. Surprised by this compliment, the Flying Dutchman smiled, in spite of himself. Like any captain, even a ghostly one, he was part of the ship. Aye, 'tis a beautiful hue indeed. Picked it out myself. It's called Ghostly Gangrene. Is that like a pun? Patrick asked. I hate puns. You know, Patrick, SpongeBob said to his partner, winking at him, I believe we've seen this particular shade of green somewhere recently. We have? Patrick asked, completely unaware of what SpongeBob was talking about. Yes, we have, SpongeBob pressed. Remember? No, Patrick said. You mean here on the ship? No, SpongeBob said pointedly. Not here on the ship, somewhere else. A certain place where we begin an important investigation. You're gonna have to be more specific, Patrick said. SpongeBob noticed someone had tagged an article from the Bikini Bottom Gazette tagged to the main mast. Its headline read, Bikini Bottom's richest citizens. He peered at the article. Hey, what's this article doing here? He asked curiously. Are you planning to scare each of the millionaires in Bikini Bottom or something? The Flying Dutchman nervously snatched the paper off the mast. What? No, of course not. Whatever gave you such a ridiculous idea? I don't know how this article got here in the first place. It must have been blown here by a stiff wind. What about the tag holding it to the mast? Patrick asked. Was that blown here too? Just in time to pin up the blowing article? SpongeBob asked, confused. Never you mind, the Flying Dutchman hollered. I've had enough of you two bottom dwellers stooping into me business. He grabbed SpongeBob and Patrick by the scruffs of their necks, dragged them below deck, tossed them in a cell, and slammed the door shut. Clang! You'll stay put in a cell until I decide what to do with you, he commanded. I thought you were going to make us join a ghostly crew forever, SpongeBob said. The Flying Dutchman shook his head so furiously that his pigtails whipped across his face. No way! I tried that before, and the whole thing was a miserable failure. Besides, the ghostly crew's already got more members than I know what to do with. Frankly, we're way overstaffed. I didn't see any crew members, Patrick challenged. That's because they're ghosts, the Flying Dutchman yelled. Invisible ghosts! You'll only see them when they let you see them. Oh, Patrick said. He looked around the small cell nervously. Are any of them in here with us? The Flying Dutchman laughed a horrible laugh. Har, har, har! That's for me to know and you to worry about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to bring my diary up to date. So much is happening. With a blinding flash of green light, he disappeared. As soon as the Flying Dutchman was gone, SpongeBob grabbed the bars of the cell's door and shook them. But it was no use. The cell door was locked, and no amount of shaking it, at least by SpongeBob, was going to open its door. Trapped! SpongeBob cried. We gotta get out of here! He turned to Patrick. You don't happen to have a file in your coat pocket, do you? Or a hacksaw? Patrick searched the pockets of his beat-up old raincoat. All he found was a stale cookie. He ate it anyway. No file, he said, chewing. And no hacksaw, whatever that is. I've got an idea, SpongeBob whispered. All you have to do is get the guard's attention. Looking around, Patrick asked, What guard? I don't see any guard. You heard the Flying Dutchman, SpongeBob whispered. All the members of his ghostly crew are invisible. That doesn't mean they're not here. It just means we can't see them. I'll call one and then you follow my lead. The last time I followed your lead, Patrick pointed out, we ended up surrounded by ferocious ghost pirates. All in a day's work for Detective Patrick, SpongeBob said, tightening his trench coat. He went back to the cell's door, grabbed the bars, and called, Guard! Guard! Oh, guard! Emergency! Emergency! We've got an emergency! Just outside the cell, a big, strong ghost pirate shimmered into view, glowering at SpongeBob and Patrick. He wore a ragged bandana on his head, a long torn coat, and tall leather boots. Arr, quiet, quiet, he snarled. You'll disturb the captain, and believe me, you don't want to disturb the captain when he's working on his diary. Now what's this about an emergency? Right, the emergency, SpongeBob said, stalling. When he yelled emergency, he actually hadn't had anything specific in mind. He was just trying to get the guard's attention. The emergency has to do with the cell. He gestured toward the cell behind him, where Patrick sat on the floor. Ooh, what's the matter with the cell? The guard asked sarcastically. Too small? Too dark? Too impossible to escape from? Ha 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 ha! He laughed a deep, loud laugh. Or maybe you two don't like your cellmate. What cellmate? Patrick asked. On the wall, the ghostly guard explained, pointing. Behind ye! Patrick and SpongeBob both turned around to look at the wall behind them. For the first time they saw a skeleton hanging from the wall, its wrist and ankle bones manacled to chains anchored in the wall. In the gloom they hadn't noticed it. They both shuddered and moved away from the bones, closer to the cell's door. Oh, the emergency, SpongeBob explained, is that this cell doesn't have a door. The pirate looked baffled. What do you mean it doesn't have a door? Of course it has a door. How do you think you got in there? We didn't build a cell around you. Ha ha ha! He laughed again, an obnoxiously loud braying laugh. Har har har! Where? SpongeBob asked, looking around with his eyes open extra wide. I don't see any door. Right here, the ghostly pirate said, pointing to the outline of the door. See? Here's the handle. Oh, SpongeBob said. Okay, so the cell does have a door, but it doesn't open. The pirate smirked. Doesn't open? Of course it opens. It wouldn't be much of a door if it didn't open, but it's locked. He slowed his speech down as though he were addressing a very young child. That's how we keep prisoners in cells. We lock them. Patrick tried to help his partner. So you're saying the door to the cell is locked? Aye! The ghost shouted. It's locked! Doesn't seem safe. What if there's an emergency? Patrick exclaimed. SpongeBob stood at the edge of the cell, peering at the handle on the outside of the door. I see the problem. This door has a lock, but it doesn't have a key. The pirate tugged his long hair in frustration. Are you nuts? Of course there's a key. We don't just leave the key sitting in the lock. If we did, prisoners could just reach through the bars, turn the key, unlock the door, and escape. SpongeBob frowned. No way! No one can reach through the bars. He's right, Patrick said. That's impossible. No, it's not! The pirate ghost screamed. I mean, look at your scrawny little yellow arms, he said, pointing at SpongeBob. They're like sticks. You could easily put your arms through the bars. I don't think so, SpongeBob said. Yes, you could, the ghost pirate insisted. Try it now! With his fingers spread out, SpongeBob slowly moved his right hand toward the door. His hand bumped up against the bars. The ghost sighed, frustrated beyond belief. Okay, close your fingers together. SpongeBob did as he was told. Now turn your hand sideways and slide it through the bars, he said. He did. Huh, SpongeBob said, acting surprised. I guess you were right. I can't put my hand between the bars. Thank you, the pirate said, lifting his ghostly hand in the air. But there's no way I could turn the key, SpongeBob continued. Right, Patrick agreed. Not even King Neptune could do that. Yes, he could turn the key, the pirate asserted. Go ahead, try it. You'll see. SpongeBob looked at the lock on the outside of the door. The keyhole was empty. How? He asked. There's no key in the lock. Oh, right, the guard said. He reached into the pocket of his long overcoat and pulled out a big set of jangling keys. Sorting through them, he muttered, Let's see, which one is it? No, not this one, or this one. I'll bet at least half of these keys are to things that we don't even own anymore. He flipped past what looked like a luggage key and a mermaid charm. I really should go through all these and get rid of the extras. And this plastic fob for bargain marts. I hardly ever shop there anymore. Their prices went way up. Aha! Here it is. Triumphantly holding up a large metal key attached to the ring, he floated over to the door and stuck it in the keyhole. The ring and the rest of the keys dangled from the lock. There, turn that. Turn what? SpongeBob asked. The key, Barnacle Brain! Turn the blasted key in the lock! If you say so, SpongeBob said, reaching toward the big iron key. He grabbed the end of the key and twisted it. Click! The door unlocked, and the door to the cell swung open. Stay tuned for Chapter 6, coming up soon.